Chapter 1, The Cause of the Apocalypse. The planet Earth has entered the abnormal state apocalypse. You have failed in saving the Earth. The authority, vintage clock, X, rewinds the world's time. Everything in existence turned into ashes as lava filled the Earth. Lava slowly flowing in bulk steadily erased the stain it created in its flow and returned to the place it came from. The world's clock started to slowly rewind itself. This was the sixth time. Humans, as well as the Earth, had faced the apocalypse, yet again through the hands of the dragons. A man, Yuji-Tai, stared at the sky painted in crimson. When the end approached him, he decided to carefully think back on the previous apocalypses as he had always done. It all happened when the hatchlings, baby dragons, left on an amusement. While they were off in their adventure, the dimensions being disjointed by accident was the source of trouble. The world they had been living in was different from the Earth, but the young dragons did not know that. Thus, they naturally did not know what kind of results their actions would bring. They lived freely, just like how any other dragon in the alternate world would have enjoyed their amusement, but the following results were close to the worst-case scenario. All adult dragons had the duty to protect their hatchlings, and this protection would sometimes be in the form of revenge. When hatchlings died in someone's hands, the dragons, even if they weren't a direct kin, would still gather and ask for the price of the blood. This was why Yuji-Tai's clock had been rewound 6 times. He was not weak. Living close to hundreds of years, he had traveled through countless battles for at least dozens of years. He had all the authorities and blessings that an existence could have, and now, he could even stand against the entire world as an individual. However, even such Yuji-Tai could not protect the broad earth against tens of dragons. That was beyond his control. Once, there was a time he found the repetitive regression tiresome. It would be great if he could die along with other humans, but the authorities and blessings that made him the strongest in the world had a firm grip on his life without letting go. In the end, the only thing he could do was to sever the reason for this repetition, by stopping the apocalypse. Then what were the causes of the apocalypse? There was one that lost control of itself in the madness of war and bled to death in insanity. N-O-1-N. There was one that stopped its own heartbeat after realizing that it could not accomplish the task given to its life. There was one that was buried in overflowing malice and unable to withstand that, it crumbled. Such 3 results slightly intertwined or disjointed and led the world to an apocalypse. On average, the years it took were between 15 to 20 years, which was also the allocated time of amusement that was forced onto the dragons. The world's time will soon begin. The Republic of Korea that had been completely rewound appeared before his eyes. His indifferent sunken gaze glanced across at the roads covered in asphalt, buildings rising up above them and people carrying umbrellas in quick steps. Black and white cars dashed across as sounds of horns reached his ears, and perhaps due to a recent rainfall, the sky was colored in a dull gray light. Within the world filled with achromatic colors, a man in a darker shade of ash gray remained standing. His lips were bent into a faint arc. It perhaps won't be an easy journey, but this time, it would be different. He finally had a gist. Chapter 2, Bomb/Spring, 1. Yuji-Tai took a uniform out of the wardrobe, covered his body with a shirt and wore a formal pair of pants. Its length and size was too small for his body, but the moment it touched his hand, it turned bigger to match his body. It was thanks to a skill he had. Inherent customization, S. Normally, it was used to allow humans to wrap their body with unwearable things, but that advanced skill was currently being used to match a smaller uniform to his body. After finally putting a tie around his neck, he stared at the mirror as it reflected the police uniform he was wearing. It all felt anew. It seemed that he had been proud to be wearing this around 100 years ago, but that was a distant memory he couldn't even remember properly. Looking at the clock, he discovered that it was 7 a.m., time to go to work. Despite being early in the morning, Gangnam was filled with people. There were businessmen in suits having phone calls, as well as superhumans smoking while wearing armors. It was them living their everyday life, due to which he found it slightly awkward. By getting on a bus, he traveled towards the portal bureau. Inside the building there were large, floating magic stones that enabled the usage of teleportation. Are you heading to the lair? Yes. As Yuji-Tai walked onto the portal, light started to wrap around his body, and when he reopened his eyes, he was at lair. Asterisk. In the 21st century, with the Republic of Korea in the center, gates opened worldwide as monsters started pouring out from within. At the same time, superhumans armed with blessings and skills started appearing. In this new period of time referred to as the New Era, Korea was on the luckier side. There were more dungeons with intelligent species and devils than other nations. The income from the devils and intelligent species were magnificent, and Korea was treated the way oil-producing countries were treated before, and thanks to that, Korea was currently in top 3 nations worldwide in terms of military force. And 10 years ago, Korea started gathering young hunters with excellent potential to one place to give education. That was the start of the Academy City, Lair. Not to mention the Korean government, the Academy received astronomical amounts of money as investments from worldwide and hiring top-level mages, magic engineers, and constructors, they succeeded in making a large floating island that was roughly as big as 1/10 of Seoul in size, Haitling. Haitling slowly revolved around the world like a satellite, and currently, it was flying over the Atlantic Ocean. Lair was the name of the academy city built on top of Haitling, and when Yu Jitai was 27 years old, he was a part of the local police force at Lair. He looked outside. Thanks to floating in mid-air, he could see clouds some distance away. Leaving the portal bureau, he walked around the academy city as students in uniforms could be seen here and there. And there was a police station not too far from it. Jitai Sunbi, hello. Jitai's here as well? We had way too much drink last night yet. When he went in, his colleagues gave greetings, but they all looked unfamiliar. That was natural because after regressing, he had never gone to work. But now it was different as Yu Jitai tried to melt into an everyday lifestyle. Up until now, he had believed in power and fear. He thought most problems could be solved through strength, and when leading others, he believed fear was the most efficient method. That was why Yu Jitai gained omnipotent strength through the regressions and monopolized top secrets and information worldwide. However, when he reached the strongest level an existence could reach in his 6th round and still failed it, his thoughts were shattered. That method was wrong, and thus it had to change now. But perhaps due to coming too far, the situation did not look positive. Throughout his regressions, there were many things he had lost. Although Yu Jitai could jump to a close dimension if he wanted, commuting to work on a bus was foreign to him. Twisting a demon lord's neck and threatening it was easy, but drinking a glass of alcohol with a friend was difficult. And yet what was required to stop the apocalypse from coming was that trifling daily life. Fortunately, this job wasn't bad. He could legally get rid of those hastening the approach of the apocalypse and also had a close relation to the lair. Thus, he was planning to associate himself with them as long as it wasn't cumbersome. Hello. Yu Jitai threw a greeting and found his seat. There were documents placed everywhere untidily on the unorganized desk. He was made to reflect back on himself from 100 years ago. Without a word, he cleaned his desk, and whenever he picked something up, memories occasionally flashed up like an old film. Hey! The colleagues stared at Yu Jitai in curiosity. Why? Don't you think Jitai Sunbi looks a bit different now? Right. Wait, what? Was he always that tall? His original height, which was already on the tall side, had visibly increased and reached around 187 centimeters. Besides, the shoulder and arm muscles showing from within the uniform revealed a build that made others question whether he was the same being as before. Unable to hold back, one of his juniors walked up. Jitai Sunbi. Did something happen? Yu Jitai turned his head around and stared at him. What was his name again, he thought, but fortunately there was a name badge reading Kim Minsu. Why? No, it's nothing, but it feels like you got taller all of a sudden and your body seems a lot better than before as well. And 1N. Nothing happened. Hearing the voice abruptly come to a stop, the junior became flustered. It wasn't just the height and the voice, but the rather hazy gaze as well as the mysterious expression that couldn't be seen through that appeared foreign. Although he always had a quiet personality and was a man of few words, that was different from the current aura he was giving off. It felt as if he was an entirely different person. You are okay, right? That's what I'm saying. Or did you get enlightened or something? When a human received mana into their body and became a superhuman, that process was called an awakening. And when a superhuman received a blessing from the world, that was called an enlightenment. Thinking about it, it was true that he had been enlightened, since he had been receiving blessings for at least 100 years. Yu Jitai gave a casual nod. I knew it. Wah, congratulations Sunbi. The reply, however, came from behind. Congratulations my ass. Stop bullshitting. Are you guys in a situation where you can congratulate yourselves? A loud voice echoed inside the office as a middle-aged man with signs of vicissitudes of life on his face appeared. It was the section chief of the Superhuman Investigation Force, Inspector Park. When he came in, the office was submerged in silence as if a bucket of cold water was dumped from above. The team leader hurriedly stood up straight and his colleagues ran up one by one to his sides. Right, there was a culture like this here. Yu Jitai stealthily walked and stood around the middle. How many weeks has it been, Hui? You made a fuss saying you would capture Joe Hozik and took all the recruits in. Why is there still no news, Hui? The section chief released his anger. Joe Hozik? No matter how much he searched through his memories, such a name could not be found inside. It most likely was a petty criminal that committed a crime inside the lair and hid himself. Standing stiffly, the team leader gave a curt reply. We almost finished finding his tracks. If you give us a little bit of leeway. A little bit? A little bit. The inspector walked up and pushed the team leaders forward with his fingers. You don't know what Team 1 is calling you behind your back, right? Sorry. Of course you don't, yet. And you'll never know in the future as well. What are they saying? They're saying it would be better for them to do it. They say it would be quicker for them to catch Joe Hosek even if they started it now. But do you know what made me more angry? It's that I couldn't tell them to shut up. Do you know why? That's. Even in my eyes, it looks like they will catch him first. Agu. You sore fingers asterisk. Then, he started pushing the foreheads of every member. You are a thumb. You're an index finger. You, a middle finger. Ak. Why are you pushing me harder than others? Fu asterisk k you mate. And you. Then, in front of Yu Jitai who had been standing in the fourth position, the inspector stopped his hand. In surprise, he opened his eyes wide open. NNN. From higher above, Yu Jitai was looking directly at him with a hazy gaze. Hey? Who is this? Why is he standing here? What are you talking about, sir? It's Jitai, Yu Jitai. NN? This is Yu Jitai. Without giving a response, Yu Jitai gave a slight nod. Inspector Park glanced across Yu Jitai's face and body and let out a mutter, hey, in doubt. He looks somewhat different though. Well anyways. I have somewhere to go right now. I'll give you guys a deadline. Sorry? By a deadline, you mean? I'll give you exactly 1 week. Within that 1 week, catch Joe Hosek or just quit your posts. You understand? Yes, sir. 1 week. Do something about it yourselves. Leaving only those words behind, Inspector Park disappeared just like that as a hot potato was dropped onto the team members. Hey go. We couldn't catch him for 3 whole months, so how can we catch him within a week? Sir Inspector is being too much. Are we catching some random bloke? It's none other than that Joe Hosek that appears and vanishes like a ghost. I know right. The team members heaved out sighs. It was unclear what they were exactly worried about but their expressions were filled with anxiety. Seeing that, the regressor made a speculation. Judging from what he saw, it appeared that they were worried that their 3 months of hard work could be in vain. It was merely 3 months of effort, so why were they so anxious? No matter how much he thought, the man could not understand their feelings. Perhaps the estrangement he was feeling was the proof that the things he had lost were a huge distance away from himself. However, he perfectly understood the circumstances and the situation. When needed, as much as they needed as long as it was to the degree of not affecting his daily life, he was inclined to help them for his own daily life. As long as it wasn't bothersome. Asterisk. Daily life was daily life but there were still things that had to be done. That night, Yu Jitai flew across South Europe, over the Mediterranean Sea. In Firenze, Italy, on a road filled with buildings that seemed to be from the Renaissance period in that place where musicians performed beautiful music on the streets, Yu Jitai faced a girl. She appeared to be 17, or 18 in age. The girl stopped her feet and stood still. Yu Jitai likewise stood still and gazed at the child for a long time. She had the hair color resembling a peridot, and eyes sparkling like gems. Throughout the long years, he had already lost all interest in women. The reason his gaze remained on her face despite that was because no matter how much he saw it, it wasn't a face belonging to a human. Her face that transcended humans had with it a beauty that was even slightly repulsive. That was the green dragon. Perhaps sensing something, it faced a slightly stiffened look at himself. Yu Jitai contemplated for a short period of time. Although he did find it, what should he do now? In the previous rounds, he did not have a reason to talk with the baby dragons for a long time so he kidnapped them and locked them inside an underground labyrinth. Ultimately it had led to failure. So, it had to be more ordinary than before. Hi. He gave a greeting. Asterisk from a Korean proverb, by 10 fingers and there isn't a single finger not sore. People use the term sore finger just by itself when referring to a dear person, like an apple of their eye. Chapter 3, Bomb/Spring, 2. Hello. From the green dragon's mouth flowed out fluent Korean. Fallen Babel, S. It was a skill enabling the use of languages and letters of every country, and was one of the skills dragons learned from birth. Why did you come looking for me? Because I have a business. So you came here knowing who I am? Of course. Yu Jitai looked at the dragon's face. It gave off a strange atmosphere that did not reveal what the inner thoughts were. Silence enveloped the two for a short while. Until now for Yu Jitai, dragons were bombs he hoped to hide without letting them ever explode. For that reason, over the 100 years of repeated regressions, the amount of conversations he had with the dragons did not go over 20 sentences a year. There just wasn't a reason for him to talk with bombs. However, he now found it necessary to talk, and for the regressor who was more used to swords than words, it was an unfamiliar experience. Carefully, he opened his mouth. Do you know who I am? Yes. The response came immediately, and at that it was an answer he had not been expecting. Did she know from the start? Who am I? Yu Jitai. Where did you hear that name from? It's written on your chest. Chest? Now that he thought about it, he was wearing the superhuman police uniform which had a name badge on it. He had come out in random clothes since blocking the eyes and ears of others wasn't even considered a task. He faced his hazy gaze at his chest before raising his head. The dragon had a strange smile on its face. I'm joking. Honestly, I don't know who you are, but I do know one thing. What is it? It's been about 1 year since I've come here, and because I like traveling, I've been to all sorts of places. Yet I've never seen or heard about any human as strong as you. And it's also my first time. The green dragon cautiously chose its words. Seeing a human as dangerous. Though young, it was still of the green race. The green dragons can read providence. In the world, there's some kind of pattern that is shared throughout the worlds, and following such patterns, objects and phenomena can be observed in depth or something, but for a human like himself, it wasn't something that could be known, and he wasn't interested in it in the first place. Did you come here to kill me? No. Then? Do you feel a sexual lust for dragons? No. Or is it an abduction? A kidnap? Similar. What are you planning to do after kidnapping me? Keeping you nearby. Why? No need for you to know. Seeing Yu Jitai's attitude of only saying the words he wanted to, the green dragon closed its mouth for some time. Then, it looked at the cracked tiles on the road and contemplated something before reopening its mouth. What if I disagree? I'll still take you. By force. Yu Jitai did not give a response. Are you going to do something bad to me? I'm not planning to. It's similar to a kidnap. Then you're already doing a bad thing. I see. But, after taking me, you won't do anything bad. Once again, Yu Jitai did not give a reply, but the silence replaced a yes. The green dragon contemplated, but it felt like it was not thinking of rejecting him in the first place. That was a decision that suited its nature as a green dragon that did not go against providence. If Yu Jitai decided to take itself by force, the dragon knew that no matter how much it tried, there wouldn't be any meaning to it. I found this place to my liking though. Right. It's my first time staying at a place for more than half a year, you see. Nothing will change even if you whine. He then stared at the green eyes without saying another word. The reason dragons were great came from the countless histories built up through their life. In other words, although a dragon, hatchlings were literally babies. They did not know much and the world would appear amazing yet frightening. However, the green dragon was so calm that it even appeared mysterious. All right. Let's go then, Ajusi. It suddenly started walking up to Yu Jitai. Ajusi? I'm going with my own feet. What? I'm not going because Ajusi kidnapped me, and I'm going with my own legs. I'm a guest, not a victim, and Ajusi is not a kidnapper either. And so please treat me nicely like a guest. It naturally walked up and reached its hand out towards Yu Jitai, as if it had already seen what would happen from now, and how Yu Jitai was planning to go back. He did not dislike the dragon's naturalness. Although he had met it several times already, it was his first time seeing such an attitude, so it even felt slightly refreshing. But that was the end to the slight interest he had. I think you're misunderstanding something, but I'm not that good a person and this is not a joke. His voice sounded gloomy, as if a sticky mix of poison flooded within. For the regressor, this was like a job where he had to bring a tiger into his house. If he didn't put a tight leash on it just because it was young, it could grow to be an uncontrollable menace in the future. Even he had had precious things that stayed with him for a long time. At least in his first 2 to 3 lives, he had loved ones imagining the future with and had vowed to definitely succeed. However, when the last day finally came, everything excluding himself turned to ashes, and in the ruined world where everyone had left, he was alone. Every time. Yu Jitai slowly opened his mouth. From now, you have to stay near my sight, and at a place where my eyes and ears can reach, you must do things I know. If you listen to me, you will never be harmed, but if you do not listen to my words, then I cannot promise you anything. Do you think my words are cruel? Even then you must endure it, because this is the most I can do for you. This is different from the world you have been living in. If you look at it from closer, there are lots of dirty and disgusting things, and I'm planning to protect you from this dangerous world. But if you walk outside the fence I put on, I'll become a slightly more dangerous guy, and there are no fences in this world that can protect you from me. Do you understand those words? Condescending words, in a monotone voice. But when those things came out of his mouth, they had more pressure than any threats could have had. Even then, the green dragon kept a calm expression on its face, but when Yu Jitai reached his hand out to grab its hand, it suddenly closed all other fingers except for the little finger. You said you'll never harm me if I listen well. Can you promise that? A kid was still a kid. Yu Jitai wrapped his little finger around and felt the tiny, white hand faintly trembling. He thought it was full of leisure, but that didn't seem to have been the case. I promise. Immediately after, the male and female disappeared from the streets. Next morning, the sun rose up. It was a weekend but the Lair district police force was rustling from early morning. Because of Joe Hosek, all the members of the superhuman investigation force had gone outside to lie in wait. Ujitai wasn't an exception. Then, I have accepted the command. Ujitai wearing the uniform bent his back in a right angle, but the one accepting the bow was also Ujitai. Shadow of an Archduke, SS. It was a split copy of himself that could use up to 50% of the original body's abilities. It was originally used by a demon world's Archduke to show itself and have influence in distant nations but was currently being used to substitute attendance for work. Ujitai casually waved his hand at his copy, and receiving a command to go and casually do whatever you're told, the copy headed towards the lair. As usual, Ujitai lied on the sofa and read the newspaper. That was when the Green Dragon walked out from his room wearing the pajamas he had bought. He made it sleep in his own room, while he slept out on a sofa in the living room. Hello. Despite being a dragon, and despite having been kidnapped, it seemed to have gotten a good sleep and casually rubbed its eyes as the disheveled hair sparkled in morning light. What's for breakfast? Breakfast. We need to eat. You didn't eat anything yesterday either. Ah. Don't tell me, you haven't been eating until now. He did eat once, with his colleagues. What about you? Do you have a meal every day? Yes. Why? You don't even get hungry. I become happy when I eat something delicious. I see, he thought, and didn't think much about it, but then, the Green Dragon asked a question. Is there nothing you want to tell me about? We didn't talk much yesterday. Not really. Like, things to be careful of when living here. Things Ajasi likes or hates and things you're expecting from me, there should be things like that. There isn't. Didn't you tell me to listen well? Just stay here. From now, your friends will all come here and you just have to live with them together. Really? Can I go outside as well? He gave a nod in response. It didn't matter whether they walked outside, and the important thing was whether they remained in the area his influence could reach or not. If a dragon decided to hide its presence, it would be difficult even for himself. Though he would definitely be able to find it, he would be slightly annoyed. If you want to do something, you can do anything. If you want, I will do anything for you. Wow. In return, don't do anything behind my back. Anything. Right, anything. Even going to the bathroom? Even a menstruation. Silence replaced his reply because he knew dragons did not have menstruations. I'm just joking. Ah, I just thought of something I want to do today. What is it? I want to go shopping with you, Ajasi. What? Please eat something first. I'll prepare it. It was an unexpected offer. Asterisk. Ujitai went shopping with the Green Dragon. From the streets to the markets, eyes of the surrounding people, regardless or age and gender, gathered at the dragon. Hey, look at that. Wow, that's crazy, maybe she's an actress or something. The person next to her looks extremely scary though. Let's not look at him, N.01N. He could hear the murmurs of the surrounding people. Words of admirations were heard continuously, but when their eyes met with Ujitai's, they would hurriedly turn their heads away. On the way back after buying some groceries, he thought that getting an ID card while they were at it would be nice and looked for a broker he knew in an alleyway. The broker had an eye patch over one of his eyes and faced the uninjured eye repeatedly and glanced at the Green Dragon's face. Evidently, he appeared surprised. Hey, wow. Is that lady on the side your lover, boss? Ujitai ignored it and the Green Dragon also pretended to have not heard it. Even then, the man's eyes turned and hands stopped every few seconds, so Ujitai opened his mouth. Should I gouge out your remaining eye as well? Sorry? No that. ID card. He growled with a voice resembling the screeching noise of metals. I understand. Only then did the man resume moving his trembling hands in fear. Ujitai was used to those reactions. A beauty that cannot be protected became a poison, and that had also become a reason for the apocalypse before. Then, the broker gulped and started throwing glances at Ujitai. He repeatedly did that, and right when Ujitai was about to get slightly angry, he asked a question at the Green Dragon. You, me. Even her voice is beautiful. Thought the broker before quickly hiding his expression. That, what would you like to do about your name, miss? Name? Name. Going home, the Green Dragon faced Ujitai. What was there to ponder? There are 4 dragons. You just had to find a random list of words so that it wasn't confusing. Bomb. The next ones could be called Yoram, Keel, and Jael, and that should do it. Star. And, the last name. You. It was because he himself had the last name Yu. You bomb. I understand. It was fortunate that there were 4 dragons. Had there been 3, they would have been called something random like scissors, paper, rock, and if there were 7, they would have been Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here it is. It has been completed. After that, the two of them walked around the city and bought some necessities. While they were at it, Yuji-tai decided to get a hologram watch and also requested a check card under Bomb's name. There was nothing to worry about, as money was something the regressor could grasp in his hands whenever he wanted. Asterisk. On the way back from shopping, the green dragon looked blankly at the identification card in its own hands before looking at Yuji-tai walking in front. Something bigger than the difference in height from other humans could be felt from his back. The dragon would be filled with anxiety whenever it looked at him. This person was dangerous. Extremely dangerous. He was definitely a murderer, and perhaps once was a tyrant, and once may have been an existence that murdered its own brethren. Its eyes of providence were warning itself real-time, even now, that that being was dangerous. However, it was already caught in his hands. While having such thoughts, the green dragon's eyes returned back to the identification card in its hands. U-Bomb, female, XXXXXXXXXX. Seoul, Gangnam-gu, Non-Hyundong 123-332. Bomb, spring. The season of life that visited the earth. It was a beautiful name that suited her really well. Perhaps this man wasn't as dangerous as he seemed to be. Both last night and today, she was safe and he wasn't threatening. Bomb once again looked at the man and found a large, wide back. Although she still felt frightened, if she saw it in a different light, it also appeared like a castle wall wetted with blood. Thus, Bomb decided to watch for a little longer. Asterisk Bomb equals spring. Yorm equals summer. Kiyul equals autumn. Jaiul equals winter. Chapter 4, Bomb/Spring, 3. After returning, Bomb started bustling inside the kitchen and soon, a salty smell spread across Yuji-tai's office tell. N-1/N. Seeing that, Yuji-tai was put into a strange mood, because her last facial expression he had seen in the previous regression was still remaining in his head. HNN. As if in a good mood, Bomb was humming. Can their first encounter be considered everyday-like? He asked himself. It seemed to have been okay. A person in a bad mood wouldn't hum after all, but back when he was kidnapping her, Bomb's expression had been stiff. Something good must have happened in between but he couldn't grasp it. Even then, cooking suited Bomb quite well. Out of the previous 6 regressions, she had a profession 4 times. She had been a painter for 2 of those rounds, a sculptor once, and was a novelist once. Whatever the case, she liked creating things. Suddenly, he was made curious. In this life where the environment had been changed tremendously, what would she become? It would be quite interesting to watch. In any case, he thought it was around time. Recovering his thoughts from the topic regarding Bomb, he started searching through the news reports made in a distant foreign land Africa. Within that continent on the other side of the ocean, incidents were being reported one after another. In South Africa, a large-scale armed clash has occurred. An air raid from the terrorist group formed around Demons, Barkada. 1,400 civilian casualties. South African Nations United, SAN, says Africa will not compromise to violence. Barkada side kidnaps and kills 14 workers associated with the SAN and shares the videos. The World Hunter Association denunciates them as the evils of humans. Clouds of war cover South Africa, as worries on more terrorist attacks continue. Currently Africa was in the turmoils of war. Unlike wars in the past that used swords and guns, it was a war of superhumans. This long war would continue until the apocalypse was casted over the earth, and created lots of victims. To be honest, he wasn't interested whether people died or not, but if one of those deaths included a red dragon, things were different. The time of the regression was 1 year after the dragons started their amusement, and the red dragon that loved fights played around in the battlefield day and night. Then, it unfortunately got attacked by a top-ranked superhuman and became greatly injured. That was an element that hastened the upcoming apocalypse. Therefore, it was better to start looking for it before it got wounded out of arrogance. He reflected on the time and date and realized that there were only a few days left. He had to move soon. Jessie. That was when Bomb waved her hand from the kitchen. It seemed like the food was almost ready. Inside the plate, there was a food resembling fried rice and judging from how it had a hint of brown, it seemed that the likes of soy sauce had been used. Grabbing the spoon, he raised a spoonful of rice and carried it into his mouth. How is it? After chewing for a bit, he stopped. Then, he raised another spoonful without saying a word. You're eating well. The meal continued in silence. After putting the last spoonful into his mouth, Yuji-tai finally let go of the spoon and seeing the empty plate, a flower bloomed on Bomb's face. This dish, it was delicious, right? Terrible. Thinking that some part of it could be delicious, he ate it till the end but there was no such thing. However, when Yuji-tai didn't give a response, Bomb seemed to have accepted that as a yes. Wah, thanks Jessie. This is in fact the dish I'm most confident with. What's it called? I haven't decided yet. He had a feeling that might be the case because there was no way a food that salty and bitter could exist in this world. Blankly, he stared at the empty plate before raising his head. I'll make it again next time. Asterisk. Just like that, the strange joint life of the regressor and the dragon began. Bomb adapted to the house rather quickly. She cooked and washed the dishes, watched TV, and read books, living like it was her house, and one day, she brought a small flower pot. It was a pot without a single sign of life within. What's this? The house is all dark, isn't it? I thought it would need something like this. As Bomb had said, Tai's house was a split copy of himself and was filled with achromatic colors. The wallpaper and furniture were of dull colors, the bookshelves were strictly organized, and there was not a single speck of dust on the floor. It was an environment that appeared unnatural to anyone. Do you want to have a look? Bomb placed her hand on the dirt within the pot and slowly closed her eyes. And when she carefully raised her hand back up, there was a small cotyledon budding up. It befitted her characteristic as the dragon of nature. In any case, the two kept their own distance and space while living together for a few days. Tai was originally a man of few words, and since Bomb also had a quiet personality, the two didn't talk much despite being in the same area. I have returned, my lord. Meanwhile, the copy repeated going and coming back from work and shared the everyday life of that day with Tai. Tai and the copy could share their memories, and after closing his eyes for a short while, Tai reopened his eyes and gave a nod. Everyone seems to be having trouble because of that Johozik or whatever. Within those memories, there were everyday emotions being felt by ordinary humans. Anxiety that came from the fact that they might not be able to catch the criminal, happiness from finding small pieces of clues, the new recruit feeling tired, and the emotions of the team leader comforting him. Such emotions that he was still unfamiliar with slowly built up inside Tai's head. Is it correct for me to go up and help the investigation? It's fine. Leave it until the deadline, and if they still haven't found him, then you can go help. I understand. Tai went through the copy's memories for a bit and thought of a similar situation. Those living their daily lives would say something like this. Well done. This was a sentence spoken by the team leader when the newbie returned from a stakeout. Complimenting someone was something he hadn't done for a long time. My loyalty to my lord. But the copy with his lowered head cautiously raised a question. However, is it possible for me to ask one thing? Although he was Tai's copy, he didn't know everything about him. What is it? What meaning is there to a daily life like this? What do you mean? Among the existences in charge of myself, there has never been anyone wishing for a daily life. They tried to use me in a field more meaningful, for example killing someone that must be killed and sending me to a place for stronger influence. Myself mentioned here referred to the shadow of an archduke, SS, itself, rather than Tai's copy. Due to exceeding the limits, the skill itself had formed a personality. And yet my lord is trying to feel what daily life is. My insignificant self cannot understand it. Hearing the copy's words, Tai closed his lips and looked outside the window in deep thought. If that happened to be an insolent question, I beg for your pardon. It's fine. Go back now. Yes. Returning the copy, Tai looked outside the window for a long time. The reason I must find daily life, he thought back on the last regression. That day, thunders roared crazily and rain poured down. Looking above at the skies, an enormous fissure with its diameter reaching 200 kilometers was being formed with a border in the center. The green dragon covered in mud collapsed on the ground and glared up at Tai. Is this the ending you wanted? It was a cold voice, but he did not respond. He could declare with ease that the 6th round was the fiercest round out of the 100 years of regression. In order to become stronger, Tai opened a crevice in the dimensions and headed to the demon world and repeated wars for tens of years. Then, he would occasionally return to Earth and kill all the organizations and people that became threats to the dragons in the previous lives. It was a repetition of war, and all that penance was to put an end to the F***ed up regressions. And yet, was this child becoming like this the ending you desired? Was this the future you said you were preparing? While crying, the green dragon glared at Tai with eyes filled with hatred. She placed a hand on the forehead of the girl that was resting its head on her knees. The girl's skin was turned cold. He just thought hiding them well enough would be enough. And yet one of the dragons had ended their own lives. And the dragon's memories of the dead transcended dimensions and were sent over to their family in another dimension. All of his hard work had turned into nothingness, and in front of such a conclusion, Tai could not do a single thing. Like a statue, he turned solid. The reason this child ended her own life, you don't know, right? Of course you don't, and by yourself you'll never know in the future. Because you have never considered us a living being. So I'll teach you now what amusement means to us. Words he had never heard despite the repeated regressions started flowing out from the green dragon's mouth. We, the dragons, are beings that live for thousands of years, and we never forget. Throughout a long life, we experience everything that an existence can, and when we become an adult after 1,000 years, there's nothing new remaining. We lose stimulation and slowly start losing our emotions. Even then, we live on. We have to live thousands of years without feeling anything, without any emotions, because we are the mediators of cause and effect. That is our life, a boring life. But did you know? Even for us, there is one thing that we enjoy. Those are the experiences we had during our amusements. When we were babies, when everything in the world was foreign, new, and even frightening. Getting to know things was fun. We could empathize with others' sadness, get angry at injustice, and be honestly happy when our efforts had results. Those memories. Unlike humans, you see, we cannot lose those memories because we just don't forget. Adult dragons think back on the memories and emotions of when they were young and relive those moments. Endlessly, until the day of our deaths, we live in nostalgia forever. For us, amusements, and first amusements like now have that kind of meaning. And yet you have ruined all that. While crying unceasingly, the green dragon did not avoid the reggressor's gaze. Yuji-Tai let out a cold breath as all sorts of emotions started storming up within. For the first time in almost forever, he wanted to make an excuse, but he couldn't. And he therefore didn't. I won't forget the things that happened today. Ever. After finishing her words, the green dragon buried the dead kindred in her arms and wailed. Although it was the regressor that had repeated its life, something in the depths of his heart that had never moved for a long time wriggled. That became a drop of poison and spread throughout his veins. Feeling like he would crumble if he were to stay there any longer, the regressor turned away and walked endlessly without a destination. He did not stop his feet for a long time. Ajasi. It was then. There was a voice that woke him up from his thoughts. It was Bomb. Are you sleeping? Yuji-Tai slowly opened his eyes. There, the green dragon that had just been cursing him looked at him with a bright expression. I'm sorry if you were sleeping. I wasn't. Why? It's this. I bought it because it looked interesting, but I can't figure out how to solve it. Please help. She selfishly pushed a mixed Rubik's Cube forward. Where did you get this? I heard there was a place called Lair, so I went there. Oh right, Ajasi works near that as well, right? Yeah. I bought it there while playing around. They sold these as souvenirs. Like her words, there was Lair's logo drawn in the middle of the cube. I also don't know how to solve this. Yuji-Tai was about to say that but stopped before he could say those words. Inside the memories brought by the copy, there was a word spoken by a senior towards a junior that was forced to undertake a task too difficult. Half doubting, Yuji-Tai decided to copy the senior's words in his memories. Let's solve it together. Really? Why? It was just unexpected. Then, Yuji-Tai and Bomb contemplated for a long time and started solving the cube together. And after a few hours passed. Click. The cube had been solved. It worked. Bomb glanced at the cube, then turned to Yuji-Tai with widened eyes. From the 100 years he had spent watching the Green Dragon, this was the first time he had seen such an expression. Do you like it that much? Her eyes bent like bows. I do. Chapter 5, Yorm/Summer, 1. Late at night, as the crescent moon rose up outside, the copy that had returned from work approached Yuji-Tai. Let me send you the memories. Right. The copy closed his eyes, and when he did, the things that had happened in the police station that day entered the regressor's head. With his eyes closed, Yuji-Tai slowly felt memories and emotions flowing into him and saw the members of the station watching Corporal Yuji-Tai and smile. The people are fond of you. I am trying hard to live an everyday life as much as I can. It was earnest in its daily life. The copy did not avoid challenging tasks and calmly dealt with his duty, but that wasn't the end. Back when Yuji-Tai was 27 years old, he was an introverted young man with a soft heart. And yet he had suddenly turned into an earnest, adult-like, dependable colleague, so the team members liked the copy and talked about a re-evaluation of Yuji-Tai. I am sure you have felt it, but they are troubled due to Joe Hozik. He must have hidden well. Yes. Besides, since it has been found out that he isn't acting as an individual but a group of human traffickers, the situation turned more awkward. They kidnap superhuman students of the lair that have no connections and are selling them to underground organizations as slaves. Yuji-Tai gave a nod. He could see in his memories the workers of the police force being troubled by it. As you have ordered, my lord, if the deadline approaches, I will move myself. Right. That was when Yuji-Tai, who had been savoring the memories, opened his eyes. Hey! Your command. Who is this? Within the memories, there was a woman that was hitting on Yuji-Tai, in a rather frank manner. Ah, it's a team leader of another team. She seems to be the daughter of the head chief, and from some time ago, she has been showing goodwill towards my lord. Now that he mentioned it, he could remember catching glimpses of her in other memories. She once said, do you want to go drink with this Nuna after work, and once, tried to touch Yuji-Tai's stomach while saying, is this ABS or a washboard? But inside today's memories, she was even more straightforward as she tried to downright rub her body on Yu Jitai's arm. What's her name? It's Li Bosuk. If perhaps you are displeased, I could take care of it. It's fine. Leave it. Daily life didn't always have good things happening, and the daily life he was attempting to achieve could be compared to a flower bed. Although there will be beautiful flowers, it was natural for there to also be bugs. Thus, Yu Jitai decided to leave it for the time being. Then, I'll get going. No, just wait there for a bit. Yes. And change your clothes. The copy became curious about the reason Yu Jitai was suddenly giving him such orders, but the commands of the Lord were absolute, so he obediently took his uniform off and changed into casual clothes. Soon, Bom's voice could be heard from the kitchen. Ajasi, come eat dinner. Finally coming to an understanding, the copy turned towards his lord sitting on the sofa. Yu Jitai was staring deeply back at his eyes. Asterisk. Next morning, Yu Jitai woke up from the sofa and stretched his body. Today was the day he had to go bring the red dragon. Red dragon. As expected of a dragon from the red race, it was aggressive. Even in the previous 6 rounds, it acted as it pleased and was the only one that did not follow the regulations he had set. If other dragons were fearful of Yu Jitai, the red dragon was different in every round. Its attitude towards himself was close to absolute disgust. Due to that, even Yu Jitai didn't know much about the red dragon. Fortunately, this time it would be a little better because Bomb was with him. You are going to bring red. Brushing her green hair, Bomb tucked her hair behind her ear as a small ear fitting the small head revealed itself. Right. Rather than going there to bring her, you're going there to kidnap, right? You could say that. Bomb contemplated a little while looking at the flower pot and opened her mouth. She probably won't like it. Of course, I didn't like the fact that I was getting kidnapped, but Red will react in a more vehement manner. How about you persuade her? You're both dragons. I'm not sure if it will be that helpful. Dragons from different races have a bit of distance. Why? Because they all desire different things. I like staying still and being laid back and enjoy making things, but the red race is different. Because our hobbies are different, we treat each other as complete strangers. Yu Jitai asked out of curiosity. Then how about bringing her by force? What? Bomb's eyes enlarged. You can't do that. Power is the pride of the red race. If you force a red dragon by power, it would give them a lot of stress. It was as expected. Thinking back on the last words of the red dragon in the previous rounds, Yu Jitai understood her words. That's troublesome. But must you bring her in? If you're thinking of keeping a dragon as a pet, isn't it enough with just me? Her words were baffling in 2 different ways. 1, he didn't need a pet, and her alone wasn't enough either. Like I said before, the reason I'm bringing you guys in is to protect you. Instead of being an owner of pets, I will be the guardian of you guys as beings. Bomb flickered her eyes. And the red dragon will be injured if I don't bring her back in time. There are guys aiming for her and //n. How do you know that though? Bomb momentarily had such a doubt regarding Yu Jitai's words, but soon, Bomb twitched her fingers and thought. For now, there's no decent method. Pretty much. Then I'll go together and see what I can help you with. Those were helpful words. Yu Jitai thought for a bit before giving a reply. Come over when I call you. Asterisk. After that Yu Jitai headed towards Africa, the barren lands. Ever since the new era, the desolate continent turned into an area that became more and more difficult for people to live in. In the midst of a large desert that was at least dozens of times larger than the Republic of Korea, Yu Jitai walked towards a group of superhumans. Let's have a chat. Which bastard are you? How dare you come? The red dragon had hidden its aura. Even the regressor couldn't immediately locate a dragon with a hidden aura straight after crossing the borders, and had to carry his feet around. He had gone around a dozen or so locations, but there still weren't any results. After making the superhumans submit with a few punches, Yu Jitai asked. Oi! Language wasn't an issue, because Yu Jitai also had fallen Babel's. Have you seen the Fighter of the Night? Fighter of the Night was an alias the red dragon used when it was active in Africa. Ugh. No I haven't. When the superhuman replied, Yu Jitai's left eye started being painted in a blue light. Eyes of Equilibrium, SS. It was one of the 3 authorities stolen from the Archduke of the Demon World, an eye that could distinguish the target's nature of good and evil, the authenticity in their words and the favorability held by the target. Do not avoid my eyes. Yu Jitai stared deeply into the superhuman's eyes. Feeling the gaze that seemed to pierce through his heart, the man felt like everything he had was being seen through and wetted his pants. Soon after, a status screen appeared inside Yu Jitai's head. False. This kid. Yu Jitai, who was already annoyed from going around in vain, formed an indifferent expression, and soon a scream was heard. Uaaaaak. And around the time the sun was about to set, Yuji-tai was able to track the red dragon. He could sense its aura a short distance away from himself. When he gave a phone call, Bomb who had received the call used teleport, to appear right next to him. Did you find her already? Yet. But the situation isn't looking that great. Following his words, Bomb also turned towards the place Yuji-tai was facing. That's true. From afar, sounds of explosions could be heard on repeat. There currently must be a huge fight happening. Stay here for now. Don't get caught up in their fight. Yes. Leaving Bomb behind, Yuji-tai headed towards the place where the fights were happening and found superhumans wearing face masks that only revealed their eyes. There were roughly 10 or so of them, and judging from the pattern drawn behind their backs, they appeared to be a fighting organization under the sun. They carried large spears and surrounded someone in the middle and were cooperating against it. The one in the middle of all that was a woman wearing a wooden mask. Javelin. Yes. In response to the masked man's words, a javelin tosser in the back that had been concentrating his mana twisted his back and tossed it in a posture that seemed to be from a painting. Lightning strike, B. The spear enveloped by lightning darkened its surroundings and headed towards the girl wearing a wooden mask. It was fast, and oppressive. In that situation which even a high-ranked superhuman would be pressured by, the wooden mask reached its hand out to grab the shaft of the spear. Queruruk. However, the explosion from the lightning grazed the wooden mask which then immediately dropped off. Then, the face behind the mask was revealed. Its white skin seemed to have been sculpted from white jade and the crimson lips resembled blood. Her beautiful nose and the eyes with heavy double eyelids had madness lurking within. Behind all that, the red ruby-like hair flickered in the sunset. The moment the face that appeared to be of a girl in her late teens, just like Bomb, appeared from behind the mask, all the masked superhumans halted their movements. In the past, in an unknown round of regression, an artist saw a dragon's beauty and said the following: it is a beauty that broadens the human's concept of aesthetics. And that appearance had shown itself right in front of them. Ha, f*ck. But a crude voice that crushed their emotions escaped its lips. Swinging the spear in its hands, the red dragon spoke. Oppas, I don't show my face that often. 'Cause I hate seeing people stop and do shit like this. Why, you? What in the world are you? Why do you want to know? Do you want to come visit my house? The red dragon then began laughing in a low voice. If you want to, come during the dawn. Let's play together, quietly. Along with those words, it licked someone's blood that remained on the spear and began chortling. It was clearly a provocation. As insane as always, thought Yuji-tai, those were his honest thoughts. The commander that had finally come to his senses shouted. This is the bastard's magic. Do not get dazed by it. Hat. Yes. Don't be careless and slowly tighten the encirclement. That was the start of round 2. Swords and spears flew by, as masses of fire and ice fell. However, the red dragon was stronger than them. It immediately defeated the entire crowd of masked men and tossed the spear in its hand. The spear flew towards Yuji-tai, who was standing next to the rock in the desert. He tilted his head slightly and dodged it. You dodged that? With a grin, it jumped towards Yuji-tai. The long sword in its waist flew forward with an oppressive force, but Yuji-tai grabbed it with his bare hand. Amusingly, the strike filled with mana was stopped by the man's hand way too easily. The red dragon's eyes enlarged. Yuji-tai did not stop there and pulled the sword in as the small body then helplessly followed the pulling force. The dragon went and hurriedly let go of the sword, before falling back with haste. When the two of them stood face to face once again, mischief had vanished from the red dragon's face. You, what are you? The life of the red race revolved around searching endlessly for those stronger than itself, and due to that, they could get a grasp of their opponent's power level. According to its senses, the man was strong to the level that it could not dare reach. Nice to meet you. Yuji-tai gave a greeting. His voice resembled that of a stiff broomstick dusting a dried-up land. Chapter 6, Yorm/Spring, 2. Not nice for me. What are you? Why is a human like you here? No, that's not it. More like, are you even a human? Eyes were reflections of their existences. That was what the regressor felt throughout his life. Every existence with eyes expressed their thoughts and emotions with their eyes. Currently, what was being shown in the red dragon's eyes was extreme wariness. That was understandable. It probably felt the strength that had exceeded a boundary, and to red dragons that believed in power, incomprehensible strength was an unpleasant element. Yuji-tai was not fond of such wariness. It was because the reason the red dragon detested him in the previous rounds from the beginning was based on the fact that their relationship started from such caution. In other words, he had messed up the first impression. Thus, it was currently an extremely important situation. He had to somehow get rid of its wariness. But how? The feeble daily lifeness showed its rock bottom. From the memories brought by the copy, there weren't any words that could be shared with someone he was seeing for the first time, especially towards a target of kidnap. That was when Bomb appeared from behind like a saving grace. Hi, Red. NN? Green. Have you been well? The red dragon's eyes examined Ujitai and Bomb, and soon, an empty laughter escaped from those red lips. What are you trying to do? Why are you here? Didn't you say you'll be going on a journey? NN. I came here to see you. To see me? Then what's that monster next to you? It's just an Ajusi I got to know recently. He's a human, not a monster. Right? Ajusi. The pair of green and red eyes faced Ujitai, and when he returned a casual nod, the red dragon made a sneer. If that's a human, I must be a lizard. I'm saying it's true. When Bomb's expression turned rather serious, it was time for the red dragon's expression to become strange. Green. What ridiculous things are you saying? Why? That thing's not a human. What kind of human is that dangerous? You should know that better than me, right? Ajusi's not as threatening as you think. What? Are you seriously out of your mind? Are you, by any chance, being blackmailed by that monster? Or do you have a baby monster inside your stomach? Red. I'm not joking right now. The green race of the dragons was a mediating race. Unlike other races of dragons, they weren't greedy and remained calm in face of any situation. That was also the reason Ujitai brought Bomb in first. Hiya. I'm going crazy. Perhaps it was because those words were coming from a green dragon like Bomb, but the red dragon seemed like it wanted to talk back and yet held its words in. Right, let's say you're right. Let's say that monster, or human, like F***ck, I don't know why, but let's say he's not a bad guy. Okay. Then why did you come find me hand in hand? I'm not holding his hand. Just answer my question. Bomb hesitated a little, and soon started talking about something that hadn't been planned. Ajusi is looking for a disciple. A disciple? Disciple? What? NN. You always wanted to be stronger, right? So I brought Ajusi over to you. Learning from a strong Ajusi like this is a rare opportunity. Ajusi doesn't have other disciples either, right? Bomb's gaze turned towards Ujitai. Her round, innocent eyes seemed to be asking him to say something in line with her words. Naturally, he never had a disciple before, because it was busy enough for him to improve his own strength. However, Bomb's ad-lib was quite useful. There wouldn't be a problem keeping the dragon by his side with the relationship of a master and a disciple as the pretense. Ujitai gave a nod. In response, the red dragon tilted its head with a pout before throwing a word out. I don't want to. Red. Why are you like this? Did you forget that I was from the red race? After leaving for my amusement, I have 199 wins out of 199 fights. As long as it's not against a monster like that, I can win. And I can get stronger alone, okay? Even then. Enough. I would listen to your words for most things, but I can't come to a compromise on this. Don't try to talk about fighting in front of me ever again. Who dares to teach the red race? Are you done talking? Off you go then. Say hi to Gold and give a kiss to Dear Blue as well. Now, here you go. Chew. The red dragon tried to kiss Bomb's cheeks, but after dodging it, Bomb spoke in a slightly annoyed tone. Red. I haven't finished my words yet. I can't hear you. Also, do you want me to give you advice? It would be better for you to distance yourself from that human. If you ignore my advice and get strangled and r***ped, it's not my fault, okay? Then, it murmured to itself, wow f***ck, that'd be pretty thrilling. Well, if you like it, you can tell him to smack your butt once while you're at it. The red dragon tapped its own butt a few times with a chuckle before turning around. Then, it melted into the dimension and vanished. N. As if a storm had gone past, the desert was filled with silence. Bomb, who was left, glaring at nothing, ran her fingers through her hair. Her expression remained the same as usual, but it seemed like she was a little annoyed because more than anything, her breaths were a little bit rougher than usual. Sorry Ajusi. I interfered but still failed. Soon, Bomb approached Ujitai with a crestfallen expression. Well done. The regressor placed his large hand on top of the green hair. What are you planning to do now? Of course, even if the situation turned out like this, there was still a method. Although it wasn't the best case scenario for himself, since the red dragon was being like that, there was no other option. There is a need to break her pride. Blinking her eyes, Bomb tilted her head. But... through another person's hands perhaps. Yet. Then, she dropped her chin going as if she understood something. That's a good plan. We should in fact have an operational meeting now then. The annoyance from before had vanished long before, and Bomb approached with a bright countenance. He returned a nod. **. Ji-tai and Bomb searched for the red dragon's tracks. Because they had gone near it once, it wasn't difficult relocating it. Wearing a crude mask it had made again out of wood, the red dragon went through 3 battlefields that day from nighttime to the break of dawn and swung its fists and sword. Its opponents included the United Forces under San, as well as the international demon terrorist organization, Barkata. In the first place, the dragon didn't belong to any sides, and if there was a fight, it chimed in and smashed both sides down. Unexpectedly, it kept a certain boundary in terms of violence. Although the red dragon was interested in defeating its enemies, it didn't kill them, as it had interest in the fight itself, instead of murder. And later that night, what was to come had come. Are you the fighter of the night? A man wearing a pure blue full plate armor, and a long sword with a contrasting light of red stood in front of the red dragon. Just from the man's existence, the air around the desert was suppressed and sunk down. His name was Javier Karma. Ranked 8th of the entire world in the superhuman ranks, he was the top force which the South African nations, San, was proud of. Because the next one in line was in double digits, Javier was the unparalleled strength in this continent. Although the red dragon fought for almost 1 entire year, it probably had not even come near the shadows of anyone close to Javier in strength. It must be him. Bomb spoke with a cautious tone. They hid within an alternate dimension, laws of nature, and watched what was happening outside. He seems dangerous. The person Ji-tai had warned of was stronger than she had thought. If it was in the Askalafa continent, he would be at the level of a grand sword master. So there are 7 more people stronger than him in this world. He nodded in response, although there were actually more than that. The red dragon gave a smile. Whoa. Appa looks pretty strong, EY. Seems to be correct. Being certain, the man pointed his sword forward. Sword of Ra. A sword forged from the essence of the sun. It was a stunning level 4 artifact that was considered a nation-level tactical weapon. You have been too arrogant, and now is the time to pay for the price. What on earth? I'll warn you. If you want to run, do so now and do not come back to the African continent. If not, you will definitely die in my hands. In Ji-tai's speculation, the red dragon probably measured what its winning chances were. However, its pride was most likely hurt, about the fact that a human could be that strong. Ji-tai, whom she did not consider a human, was a different story. Therefore, she would not run away. F***ck off. It was as he had expected, and soon, the fight between the red dragon and Javier began. The dragon pushed through with attacks based on its strong physical attributes, while Javier easily parried those attacks away and waved the longsword, aiming at the head. Those slices were experienced, rapid, and fierce. The red dragon urgently activated defensive magic. Self-defense, A red aura protecting the dragon covered its head, but it was far from enough. The pressure behind the longsword was overpowering. As the red aura dispersed, the red dragon flew off a dozen meters and was driven into a sandstone before breaking it and flying further off into the sands. Unfortunately, the battle was one-sided from the get-go. Bomb formed a half-squint with her eyes. Amongst dragons, a part of their emotions would be shared, and she must have thus felt something. Since it was an obvious result, Ji-tai wasn't surprised. The strength of the dragons was a reflection of the countless histories building up their lives, and a baby dragon with shallow experiences was merely a novice with dormant talent. The battle continued, and the red dragon was constantly beat up. In the end, the dragon that had a long bleeding wound on its forehead let out a bellow. This F***ck. I'll kill you. When the pride is a red race, when that ego was broken, the dragon could not endure its rage. Red Mana wriggled as the authorities of a dragon were being revealed. Then, the previously one-sided match turned a level easier for the dragon as one of its fists drove itself deep into Javier's chin. However, that was the end. Javier, who had allowed one hit, quickly distanced himself and raised the sword up. Soon, his blue armor and the sword started a resonance. Artifacts above a certain grade had to be usually sealed to hide its destructiveness, and only when required were they unsealed. Ignite. The sword was currently being unsealed. Before long, an intense light started flowing out of the sword of Ra. Sunlight gathered near the sword, and as if it had been put into a furnace, the blade started being colored in light. Ajasi. That was dangerous. Bomb's urgent voice was heard as her small hand grabbed the sleeve of Ji-tai's shirt. Despite that, he remained watching with his arms crossed. Kwaong. Shortly, behind the trajectory of sword of Ra, an explosion of immense amount of mana occurred and drew a cylinder with a diameter of 10 meters as it reached the heavens. Kyug. Letting out a groan, the red dragon collapsed on the ground. Its eyes swayed, and above its pure skin, scales started being formed. Unable to endure its rage, the dragon was about to break the taboos of amusement and was about to undo the polymorph, to manifest itself in its dragon form. Ji-tai made a frown. If things happened the way they did, the red dragon would soon lose one of its wings and an arm. Thus, it was around time for him to move. Leaving the alternate dimension, Ji-tai immediately flew forward and stood behind the red dragon. When he did, the middle-aged man, Javier, widened his eyes and hurriedly increased the distance. Where do you think you are going? The red dragon, who did not understand what was happening, was about to scream that when Yu Jitai's palm smacked the dragon's white, slender neck. Knife hand strike, D. Bam. The red dragon's small body collapsed. Chapter 7, Keel/Autumn, 1. Yu Jitai stared at the powerless red dragon. It wasn't in a good state. Due to the aftermath of its manifestation, its skins had been torn apart with scales pointing out from within and the body was filled with wounds. Although the cuts near its forehead, cheeks and neck were shallow, a wound starting from its chest connecting to the shoulder was considerably deep. Besides, due to being oppressed by the opponent's mana, it wasn't being healed smoothly. A complete defeat. The red dragon must have received quite the shock, just like how it did in the previous rounds. However, losing a wing and an arm was avoided, and one of the elements hastening the approach of the apocalypse had vanished. You, what are you? Javier, who had quietly distanced himself, frowned and slowly approached again. I asked what you were. What relationship do you have with that monster girl? Who knows? A guardian perhaps? He opened his lips at a slow pace. Guardian? Did you just say that? You don't look blood-related though. That's how things turned out to be. It's a bit complicated, so I can't tell you everything. How about we just get over it? This isn't a simple matter. That monster girl crossed the line. The regressor did not like the current situation. It was this guy that broke the red dragon's pride and later would become a goal for the red dragon. Thus, he could not be killed. This child will no longer appear here. Is that still not good? This is within the area of San's investigation's influence. As of today, I will enact my duties as an investigator of San and arrest the monster girl, as well as you who proclaim to be its guardian. Your ears must be clogged. Surrender. If you obediently surrender, your 4 limbs will be intact. He stared at the skies for a short time. The things that would be happening hereafter, would not be to his liking. In that instant, Yu Jitai's body became hazy. Becoming tense, Javier put strength into his hands holding the sword, but the moment he realized that the man in front of him had disappeared, a strong force struck his chest. His body bounced back by itself. Clenching his teeth, Javier raised the sword of Ra again and attempted to counterattack. Kong. However, the sword stopped midair. This. Javier doubted his own eyes. It was the ignited version of Sword of Ra that contained a tremendous amount of the sun's essence. The weapon that could rip apart a S-grade monster's leather and crush its skull was currently being blocked by something invisible and could not be pushed. It felt like he was pushing a rock with a wooden sword. Inside the man's hand, there was an invisible sword, and when he swung it, the sword of Ra bounced out of his hand. Next, a rough kick followed suit. Javier fell on the ground after being kicked and he attempted to hurry himself back up, but the man stepped on his chest. Javier could not move a single inch. What in the... He had fought with countless rancors containing the fiercest strengths. As time passed, he no longer tasted defeats, and yet even including the past battles he had, never was he this powerless. The gravity seemed to have increased 10,000-fold. Facing a situation that far surpassed his comprehension, his heart beat like it had been bombed. Javier looked into the regressor's eyes, and in that instant, his breath ceased. The hazy gaze of the man was seen approaching him, so clearly that it appeared out of place. It resembled the gaze of a beast that naturally stiffened others' bodies. The beast slowly opened its mouth. Listen carefully. Yu Jitai added more power into his hand. Although there was neither a hilt nor a blade, he was definitely holding a cold weapon. Shapeless sword, SS. That was the intent to kill people. Today was the unluckiest day of your life. The killing intent without a shape or form had an edge like a knife and touched Javier's eyes. While you were carrying out your duty as an investigator alone, you happened to encounter an unknown monster. Then, he started cutting Javier's eyes. Unfortunately, you couldn't cope with its initial attack, due to which you lost your eyes. A killing intent that slashed one of his eyes carried over and slashed past the bridge of the nose and headed towards the other eye. The monster escaped, and in the end, you did not feel or see anything. Soon, the other eye was also destroyed, but despite the acute pain, the rancor did not open his mouth. He could not say a single word. You understand? Fear kept a tight seal on his mouth. Asterisk. Although Javier had lost his eyes, they were fixable, as San had lots of outstanding healer-type superhumans. However, they could not erase the fear deeply embedded into his brain. Just like that, fear was usually an efficient method. Yu Jitai carried the red dragon in his arms and walked back into Bomb's alternate dimension. There, Bomb activated the healing powers of Mother Nature and cured the red dragon. When Javier's ominous mana disappeared, the wounds started closing at a rapid speed. While that was happening, the red dragon slowly opened its eyes. However, different from the speed of the body healing, the mind that had been shaken due to mana required more time to fully recover. Red. You don't have to force your eyes open. One of its hazy eyes opened while the other barely even moved. Soon, the red dragon's gaze traveled from Bomb to Yujitai, before going back to Bomb and closing. Then, a murmur escaped along with a sigh. F***ck. It was a powerless profanity, but in any case, Yujitai had to say what he needed to. From now, you will be living with me in my house, and you must stay under my protection. I'll tell you again after you recover, but just to let you know. You have no right to choose, and it's fine to think of it as being confined. However, you will have enough freedom for yourself, and as long as you wish for something, I will support you as much as I can. And from now, your name is Yoram. Remember that well. The red dragon did not respond. It barely managed to turn its body away and remain silent with its back facing them. When it laid down in silence like that, it reminded others of how small its back was. Soon, its small shoulders could be seen trembling. Was it crying because of the one-sided defeat? The regressor feigned ignorance. Around the time Yoram's wounds closed down, Bomb separated her hand from her and faced Yujitai. I think it's okay for the time being. She'll get better. Well done. You too as well, Ajusi. After this, you know what to do, right? Yes. Leave it to me. Remembering the discussed strategy, Bomb gave a nod. In any case, this cumbersome situation was finally over. Yujitai closed his eyes, and raised a finger to his temple. I'm letting you know that the situation has been taken care of. My lord. Then, he shared his memories with his true body that would be quite a large distance away from himself. Asterisk. Memories flooded into his head. Closing his eyes, Yujitai did a quick scan of those memories. His copy must have suffered a lot. Well, it was to be expected, since bringing a ruffian from the middle of a dusty desert wouldn't be easy. It appeared troublesome from the start, and thus he had sent his copy there. NN? What's the matter, Ajusi? Because he suddenly closed his eyes, the little girl facing him asked. She had a bright blonde hair resembling that of a little chick, and a beaming smile on her face. If Bomb appeared to be in her late teens, this girl would be around 2 years younger than her in terms of appearance. And similarly, her face contained a beauty that was difficult to be seen from a human. It was the gold dragon. After sending his copy to the red dragon, Yujitai left for the Amazon rainforests at the same time and searched for the baby dragon that could not even hide its aura. But outside of his expectations, it greatly welcomed Yujitai while saying, I smell a familiar scent from you. It probably was Bomb's smell. Why? Did something happen? No. More importantly, return that please if you're done. What? Already? Its yellow eyeballs swayed left and right as its hands held onto Yujitai's most recent smartwatch. In the middle of their simple conversation, the gold dragon became curious about it, and Yujitai had thus untied it before handing it over. Can I play around with it for a bit more? No. HNNNGGG. It's really interesting though. Like, there's a screen in the air and like. Despite apparently having lived out in the society before, it found the watch more interesting than it should. Perhaps it was because the watch was the most recent type. Give it back. Ewing. Slowly, the watch in its hands was pushed forward. It was at an exceedingly slow speed, and meanwhile, its golden eyes were glancing at Yujitai, reading his mood. Even when Yujitai grabbed the watch, the baby chicken did not let go of the watch and held onto it with its meager grip. Do you like it that much? Yes. A lot. Yujitai loosened his grip. Oh wah. Thank you, Ajusi. In fact, there was a thing he had brought to dissolve the dragon's heart, and its wariness. Thinking back on the previous round's gold dragons, it always carried around something to eat, and so Yujitai had gone to a bakery to buy all sorts of bread and cookies. And yet it seemed those had been unnecessary. Wah, this tiny thing can do that. Fidgeting with the watch, it started taking pictures. Click. On the hologram display, the dragon's face surfaced up. Those shots were randomly taken, and yet still appeared like a painting. Wah, Ajusi. This thing has an awesome quality. That's because it's an expensive one. With a pair of sparkling eyes, it started taking pictures of everything, including the tree, a mushroom, a snake passing by, as well as the dull regressor. Seeing Yujitai's face on the hologram, the baby chicken started chuckling, in a voice resembling a rolling crystal. Yujitai reflected back on the previous rounds. This dragon had become a celebrity 3 times out of the 6 rounds. In the first place, the gold race loved getting attention, and in the Ascalaphan continent, some became guardian deities of kingdoms. It could be considered a future perfect for their characteristics. On the other hand, this dragon had also been the very existence that caused the most number of apocalypses. It was because although love and attention appeared splendid on the outside, there would always be poison mixed within. Suddenly, he had a doubt. You? Yes. Why are you here? Its golden eyes widened. Sorry. If you're out on an amusement, you need to live with humans. There are only beasts and insects here. Uh, uh, uh. H, how did you know? The dragon became startled. I heard from the green dragon. Ah. Then, the baby chicken pointed its nose out towards Yujitai and started smelling him, before suddenly slapping her hands. That's why. So, why are you here? Ah, the thing is. I tried living with humans once, you see? That, was a bit scary, and I did something called a vlog back then, and, I signed a contract? With some company? But it was hard to earn money and, The baby chicken started talking gibberish. There appeared to be some circumstances, but he couldn't understand what they were. I got it. In any case, that's how things turned out. I was a bit afraid. Right, it's fine. The excitement within the atmosphere died down a little, but that wasn't what he desired. So, Yujitai clicked his fingers and sunk into the alternate dimension within himself. From the darkness, dozens of arms floated out and stopped right before him, before simultaneously lowering their wrists. Shallows of the abyss, S. That huge alternate dimension that could swallow an entire city was currently being used as a bag for Yujitai. Bring me the bread. One of the arms gave a nod with its wrist. Then, it returned back to the darkness before coming back while holding a small bag of bread.